Hey everyone, today we're back with the mechanical engineer. How you doing?
Very good. How about you?
Good. So last time we went through, we built out, let's see, a rocks, paper, scissor game. We
hmm
went over a little bit about some of the operations that you can do with strings in Python.
hmm
So for this video, I think we're just going to explore another data type, actually a data structure called dictionaries. Have you ever heard of those before?
Uh, um, Not in the coding sense.
Right, right. Okay. So another term that you'll hear is maps. But basically, what it does is it is a little bit similar to the lists that you looked at before, right? Arrays.
hmm
But the only difference now is that there are key and values in within this structure. So you can think of it like if, say, you have a phone book. We'll build out something like a phone book today.
hmm
Um, in the phone book, you're going to have a name and then an associated number, right?
hmm
So in that case, the name would be the key, and then their phone number would be the value.
hmm
So there's a lot of really beneficial things with dictionaries. For one, they can hold a lot of information, and it's a little bit more intuitive to work with, just from a beginner sense.
hmm
So if you're counting items, you can have an item as the key and the account as the value, right?
hmm
We'll actually do that in the next lesson as a little challenge question for you. So to start off, we're going to start off with the syntax here. So why don't you define, we'll make a phone book. I think that's a good way to get started. So
Okay.
why don't you just define a variable called phone book, and then you're going to set that equal to an open and close curly brace. So I remember I told you that, in C, C++, you use these to define the scope, right, in for loops and conditionals and things like that.
hmm
So in this language, we're going to use it to instantiate an empty dictionary.
Okay.
So if we wanted to add, so choose three of your favorite names and think of them now. And then what we'll do is we'll just add one of those to this dictionary, the phone
hmm
book. I'm
Okay.
actually just going to call it phone book from now on. So just know that it's a dict structure.
hmm
So to do that, you can go to the next line here and we can
hmm
start adding things to it. So you're going to type phone book, and then you know how you index lists and arrays and things
hmm
with the square brackets? So you're going to do that. You're actually going to do it with the variable itself there. Yep. And then you can type as a string any name you want,
hmm
and you can set that equal outside of the yep. So set that equal to a number. Let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, just so that way it doesn't confuse you.
Okay. So I repeat this for different names.
Yeah, yeah, sure. And then why don't you change the numbers to be something that isn't like sequential like that, to prove that it doesn't, you don't get confused as like a counter. Make it like a phone number, so give it like a few digits. You know what I mean? Sure. An R in a phone number there. That's good.
Oh, what?
All right. So now, why don't you just print phone book on the next line, and we'll see what this constructed. You can kind of see visually the structure of what you just created by adding those three entries there.
Okay. Oh, we gotta run up here. Dictionaries. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
There you go. So if you look, you have your keys, which are your names, right?
hmm
And you have the colon there, and then the value associated with that. Make sense?
Yeah.
So if a value is not in the dictionary, like you have there, because we instantiated it as nothing, if you want to add a key and value to it, then you can do it the way that you just did there. There's a couple other like built-in methods, but just for this, the way you did that is totally fine.
hmm
But now let's say Tony in your phone book there got a new number,
hmm
right?
Yeah.
How do you think that you reassign the value?
Could I just copy and paste this down here and then change the number?
Let's try that. And then make sure you print it at the bottom just so we can see it. There you go.
Sweet.
And now let's say, and then this is kind of a foreshadowing into what we'll do next time.
hmm
Um, let's say for some reason, let's say these aren't phone numbers just for a second and say it's a count. What if you wanted to increase the value of Tony's phone number by 1? How do you think you'd do that? Let's pretend that we don't know what the phone number is, but we know that we want to increment the value by 1.
Could I do something like Phonebook Tony equals Phonebook Tony plus 1?
Yep, and then the shorthand for that is you can just do plus equals 1.
Ah. Yeah. Plus equals 1. Cool.
And then why don't you print it one more time and we'll see it update.
Okay, plus 1.
Awesome. So now what I'm going to show you is what happens, kind of an error that we can get. So there is a built-in function called get that we can call that will return none if this fails. But let's say pick another name like Sharon or something, and try to print Phonebook at Sharon, and we'll see what the error we get is. Because we really haven't talked a ton about errors. I kind of catch them before you run the code. So this time, let's just print Sharon. Don't assign it to anything. Just print as though Sharon's in it, if that makes sense.
What value am I associating with that?
Her name is just whatever you want.
Like what number? Do I need a number in here?
Oh no, so you're trying to print the phone number of this person called Sharon. So to do that, if you would actually just print Phonebook and then index at the name Sharon, so the key Sharon with square brackets.
Okay. Oh, this like number that I just made up is
nope.
Sharon's
So
number.
so that's the value, right? So when you're looking things up in dictionaries, you are always looking them up by the key that they're associated with. You're looking up.
Yeah.
You're looking for the value by the key, if that makes sense. So why don't you run that? We'll see what it says.
Shouldn't work.
See how it says key error?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of errors that are built into Python, one of which is this key error. And it's pretty descriptive just by saying that, you have a key error, meaning that this key does not exist in your dictionary. So the only thing I wanted to note here was that it's really important. This is a kind of a very, I guess, human example of making a phone book. But when you're dealing with, say you're trying to count characters in a string or doing something like that, sometimes you not doing things loop and you kind of lose track of complete control here. The errors can be really common if you're not careful. So when you're trying to add something new to the table, it's important to do it the way you did on lines 4 through 6 there, and then always make sure that, if you access a key like this, that you're sure that it will exist.
Yeah, gotcha.
All right, so now, well, last thing we can do for this lesson is just iterate through dictionaries. So you can remove all the print statements you have there, just so we don't have errors, and we can
Okay.
That's fine now. Okay, so now on line 14, why don't you hit enter once, and then we can iterate through. So do you remember how to iterate through? Before I tell you how to do it, how do you think you'll iterate through a dictionary with a for loop?
So probably for LM in Phonebook.
Sure. And then why don't you just, within that loop, why don't you just print LM and we'll see what it does.
Yeah. So print LM, right?
The only thing is the brackets there. You don't need. Yep. Now you can run that. We'll see what it prints. So what does that print out?
One at a time. The values.
The values?
Or the keys. These are the keys.
Right. So that's something really important. So if you loop through it as you would a list, you are getting keys. But let's say you are doing something within this loop where you kind of want access to both of them. For that, you can actually do, I'll just tell you the method. So you have for LM in Phonebook there. You can do dot items on phone. And then, yep. And now the only thing here is items is going to, go ahead and run that. We'll see what it does. Right. So now it's returning this data structure, which we don't really talk about it. I don't think it's worth talking about, but it's called the tuple. And basically all a tuple is an immutable. You know what that word means, mutability?
No.
So lists are mutable, meaning you can update them. So if, remember you were changing, say, something in index 5 to something else, you can do that. With tuples, however, you cannot change the values within them. So now, in this case, though, LM, right, is an index. It's a tuple of size 2 with 2 elements in it. But what if you didn't feel like indexing LM every single time, and you just wanted to have both of the things as you loop through kind of referenced by some iterator like LM. So for that, you can see, so go back to line 16 there. You have 4 LM in phonebook.items. Do 4 LM comma value. Right, and then just put the space before the V there. So now run this print LM, and then on the next line print value. Go ahead. Yep. So now what you're doing is remember that the data type of when you had LM in items, it returns that tuple, right? So now what you're doing by having 2 iterators is you're saying LM is going to be my key and value is going to be my value. So if I were to if I were writing this, then instead of using LM, I would probably just write key itself, right? So then when you're referencing it within your loop, you know exactly what you're doing all the time. So that's one way to iterate through. And then I'll show you a couple more little things, I think. Yeah, we have time for one more small thing. So remember that it's key and value, right? That's key to this lesson that we're going over right now. So what if you only cared about keys? So there are some built-in methods, or say you only cared about values. There are some built-in methods to do that. So just here, we'll just print 2 of these things, and then we can wrap up this lesson. So for this, you can just print phonebook.keys. And then just make sure you put the parentheses after keys there.
What do you mean? Oh,
see how items is like that? Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Why don't you run that? So you have the keys there. And then the same thing for dot values. Right. There you go. So this can be really useful as we get more advanced and we're trying to do these like really, these coding challenges. A lot of times dictionaries, and you'll actually hear the term hash map. They're very useful for them because the lookup time to look up something by a key is constant. Meaning, if, say you had a list, right?
Yeah.
It was 10,000 elements long, and you're looking for the number 10. In theory, you'd have to loop through the entire thing to find it. Let's assume it's the last element, right? You'd have to loop through that whole list and check every single time to find 10. But with dictionaries, if you know you're looking for 10, you're looping through a list and you want to check if an element in the second list is in the first, then instead of looping through the whole first list, you can just put the number 10 as the key in a dictionary and maybe store the count as the value. So then when you look it up the second time around, you just look up 10 and it's a constant lookup and you're all set. So it's very fast to use these. And it's kind of like an ongoing joke that in technical interviews, the answer always tends to be a hash map. And that's kind of what we're creating here with this phone book here. So.
Gotcha.
So yeah, good job. Next time, I think I'll ask you 1 or 2 challenge questions related to these. I think that's the best way to learn how to use them. They're kind of a tricky topic. For some reason, they're not always enforced in like formal education. They're kind of just kind of like an assumed knowledge from at least my personal experience and the people I've talked to. So, so yeah, good job. Do you got any questions?
Sweet. No, I think I'm all set.
All right, great. So get ready for some challenges.
Awesome. Look forward to it.